The Boston Museum of Contemporary Art buzzed with the city's elite, but Thaddeus Blackwood barely noticed them. The 32-year-old tech entrepreneur checked his watch again, wondering why he'd let his publicist drag him to this fundraiser when he had 3 potential investors waiting for replies. Just 1 hour of FaceTime. Thad muttered to himself, mimicking Diane's insistent tone. The optics matter for the next funding round. He straightened his tailored navy suit and navigated through clusters of patrons, nodding at familiar faces while scanning for the exit. That's when he collided with her. "Oh God, I'm so sorry," she said, steadying herself as champagne sloshed over her glass. Thad reached out instinctively to stabilize her, his hand briefly touching her arm. "Entirely my fault. I wasn't looking where." Their eyes met, and something peculiar happened. The room seemed to quiet, the buzz of conversation fading like someone had turned down the volume. "Ellery Monroe," she said, extending her hand. Her dark auburn hair was pulled back in a simple twist, revealing a face that was striking without trying to be. "I'm afraid I've destroyed your pocket square." Thaddeus Blackwood. "And it's a casualty I'll survive." He smiled, surprised at his own ease. "Are you with the museum?" "No, actually. I own a small gallery in Providence. I restore artwork, too." She took a sip of what remained in her glass. "How about you?" "Tech. Nothing as interesting as art." "I doubt that's true." Her hazel eyes held his with surprising directness. "What kind of tech?" "The boring kind. Security software." "You mean the kind that keeps our digital lives from imploding?" "Hardly boring." A nearby couple jostled them as the crowd shifted toward the center of the room. "Would you like to continue this conversation somewhere less crowded?" Thad found himself asking. Ellery paused, studying him. "There's a Degas exhibition in the East Wing that no one seems interested in tonight. Too classical for this crowd." As they walked, Thad noticed her understated elegance. No flashy jewelry or designer label flaunting that he could detect. Just a simple black dress that somehow looked perfect on her. "So, Providence?" he asked as they entered the nearly empty exhibition hall. "Born and raised in Rhode Island. Never thought I'd return after college, but the opportunity to open my own space was too good to pass up." She stopped before a ballerina painting. "My grandmother was a dancer. These always remind me of her." "You restore art? What does that involve exactly?" Her face lit up. "It's detective work, really. Understanding what the artist intended, what time has damaged, and finding the balance between preservation and resurrection." "That sounds remarkably similar to what I do with failing systems." She raised an eyebrow. "How so?" "Figuring out what the original architects intended, what's been corrupted, and finding solutions that maintain integrity while moving forward." "You just made tech sound poetic, Mr. Blackwood." "Thad, please." "And it can be, at times." For the next hour, they moved slowly through the exhibition, conversation flowing with unexpected ease. Thad learned that Ellery had double majored in chemistry and art history at Brown, that she'd spent 2 years apprenticing in Florence, and that her small gallery specialized in American Impressionist works. "What about you?" she asked. "What's the Thaddeus Blackwood origin story?" "Less glamorous. MIT, then 3 failed startups before Pinnacle Tech gained traction." He shrugged. "The usual tech guy trajectory." "I doubt anything about you is usual," she said, then looked slightly embarrassed at her candor. When they reached the end of the exhibition, Thad realized he'd completely forgotten about checking his phone. The investors, the meetings, the endless demands of his growing company, all had faded to background noise. "I have to head back to Providence tonight," Ellery said, glancing at her watch. "Would you have dinner with me tomorrow?" The words came out before he could analyze them, most unlike his calculated approach to everything else. She hesitated. "I hardly know you." "That's typically the purpose of dinner. To remedy that situation." A smile played at the corners of her mouth. "I have the gallery tomorrow evening." "The next night, then?" "I could drive to Providence." "You drive an hour for dinner with a stranger?" "I drive 2 for dinner with you." Ellery studied him again with that direct gaze. "You're used to getting what you want, aren't you?" "Not always. But I'm persistent when something seems worth pursuing." She took out a business card and wrote a number on the back. "Friday, 7 o'clock. Text me, and I'll send you the address." As she walked away, Thad's phone buzzed with a flurry of messages from his assistant. 3 missed calls from potential investors. A crisis with the development team. Strangely, none of it seemed as urgent as it had 2 hours ago. 8 months later, Thad stood at the bow of the Prosperity, his 30-foot sailboat, watching the sunset cast amber ribbons across Lake Champlain. Behind him, Ellery sat wrapped in a cream cashmere throw, her hair dancing in the autumn breeze. "Are you ever going to tell me why we sailed all the way up here when you hate cold weather?" she called. "Patience was never your virtue," he replied, fighting the nervous energy coursing through him. Their relationship had progressed with an intensity that surprised them both. After their third date, they'd fallen into a routine of alternating weekends between his Boston penthouse and her Providence apartment. By month 4, each kept a drawer at the other's place. By month 6, Thad found himself considering things he'd always relegated to some distant future: family, roots, a life beyond the next funding round. "Come here," he said, turning to face her. "I want to show you something." Ellery approached, her expression curious. "If it's another investment portfolio explanation, I still maintain that watching paint dry is more exciting." Tough critic. He took her hands, noticing how perfectly they fit in his. "Remember our conversation about synchronicity? When I said coincidences are the universe's way of getting our attention?" She nodded. "You called it confirmation bias. I was wrong." Thad pulled her closer. "The night we met, Pinnacle's valuation was exactly $1 million. The day you finally agreed to meet my parents, we closed our Series B at $10 million. Yesterday, when you told me you loved the sunset from this exact spot, we signed Westridge as our biggest client yet. Are you suggesting I'm your good luck charm?" "I'm suggesting that the most meaningful markers in my professional life now align with the most meaningful moments with you." Her expression softened. "That might be the most romantic thing you've ever said." "I'm just getting started." Thad reached into his pocket, heart hammering. "The biggest decisions in my life have always been calculated risks. Everything mapped out, variables considered, potential pitfalls identified." "The engineer's approach to life," she teased. "Until you." He opened the ring box, revealing an emerald-cut diamond set in platinum with smaller emeralds flanking it, her favorite stone. "This is the first decision that requires no calculation, no risk assessment, just absolute certainty." Ellery's eyes widened. "Thad, marry me, Ellery. Be my synchronicity, my confirmation bias, my statistical anomaly. The exception to every rule I've ever lived by." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Yes, of course yes." Later, as they lay in the boat's cabin with the last light fading, Ellery traced patterns on his chest. "I've been thinking about the Newport property." They'd viewed a historic home on the Rhode Island coast the previous month, a midpoint between Boston and Providence that Thad had surprisingly fallen in love with. "What about it?" he asked, running his fingers through her hair. "I think we should make an offer. It feels right. For us, for the future." "The future," he echoed, liking how it sounded. "Speaking of which, I have news. Westridge wants exclusivity, but they're offering $30 million for it." She propped herself up. "Thad, that's incredible." "It's a gamble. If I say yes, we're wed to one client. If I decline, we might lose them entirely." "What does your instinct tell you?" "That I want a home in Newport with my wife." He kissed her forehead. "The rest will sort itself out." 2 weeks later, they signed the papers on the Newport house, and Thad declined Westridge's exclusivity offer. The company responded by increasing their non-exclusive contract to $15 million, half the original offer, but with full independence maintained. "See? Trust the universe occasionally," Ellery said as they celebrated with champagne in their empty new living room, surrounded by moving boxes. "I trust you. The universe is still on probation." April brought cherry blossoms, final renovations on the Newport house, and unexpected news. Thad arrived home from a business trip to find Ellery sitting on their porch swing, a strange expression on her face. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately concerned. "Nothing's wrong," she said slowly. "But something unplanned has happened." She handed him a small white stick with 2 pink lines. "Is this? Are you?" For once, the man known for his articulate pitches couldn't form a complete sentence. "About 8 weeks, according to the doctor I saw yesterday. January conception, September delivery." Thad sank onto the swing beside her. "We're having a baby. Apparently, your backup systems have some vulnerabilities," she joked weakly. "Are you upset? I know we talked about waiting a few years." He pulled her into his arms. "Upset? Ellery, this is perfect. Unplanned, unexpected, and absolutely perfect." That night, they stayed up late making plans, A nursery in the east bedroom for the morning light, child-proofing the grand staircase, researching the best schools in the area. There's so much to do, Ellery said, adding another item to their growing list. We have time, Thad reassured her, placing his hand on her still flat stomach. Besides, I'm good at executing against deadlines. The following Sunday, they shared the news with their families over brunch. Ellery's widowed father wept openly, while Thad's reserved parents offered quiet congratulations, his mother already discussing private school applications. Everything was proceeding perfectly until the Tuesday Lorelei Vaughn returned to Boston. Thad's phone rang as he and Ellery were discussing baby names over dinner. Thaddeus Blackwood. He answered without checking the caller ID. Hello, Thad. Long time. He froze at the familiar voice. Lorelei, what do you want? Just to catch up with an old friend. I'm back in town. Thought we might have dinner. I'm engaged now. And busy. Ellery watched him curiously. Engaged? My. Things have changed. But I have something you'll want to hear about Astra Technologies. Remember them? Astra was Pinnacle's biggest competitor, recently making aggressive moves in their market. I'm not interested. 15 minutes, Thad. The Charles Hotel Bar, tomorrow at 5. You'll regret missing what I have to say. The line went dead. Who was that? Ellery asked. Lorelei Vaughn. My former business partner. He set down his phone. Nothing important. The one who left when things got tough? She didn't sound unimportant. She's not part of our lives. Thad reached for Ellery's hand. Now, where were we? I believe you were trying to convince me that Bartholomew is an acceptable middle name. But even as they laughed and continued their evening, a shadow had crept in, one that would grow darker than either of them could possibly imagine. The Charles Hotel Bar maintained a discreet hush despite being nearly full. Thad spotted Lorelei immediately, her platinum blonde hair arranged in a sleek bob, her crimson lips curving into a predatory smile as he approached. You came after all, she said, raising a martini. 15 minutes, Thad replied, checking his watch. I have a dinner with Ellery at 7. Ah yes, the fiancé. Quite the whirlwind romance, from what I hear. He remained standing. What do you know about Astra? Direct as always. Lorelei gestured to the chair opposite her. It's rude to hover, Thad. Reluctantly, he sat. The clock's ticking. They're planning to undercut your deal with Metronix. They know your pricing structure. She sipped her drink. But that's not the interesting part. And what is? Your precious Ellery. Have you investigated her background thoroughly? Thad's jaw tightened. Don't. Did you know her gallery was on the verge of bankruptcy when you met? That she's been meeting with James Harwick from Venture Arts Fund? The same fund that mysteriously pulled out of discussions with Pinnacle last month. You're wasting my time. Lorelei slid a folder across the table. Open it. Inside were photos. Ellery having lunch with a middle-aged man. The two in conversation outside an office building, exchanging what appeared to be documents. That's Harwick, Lorelei explained. They've had 6 meetings in the past month. Quite cozy for an art dealer and venture capitalist, wouldn't you say? Business meetings. She's seeking funding for the gallery expansion. Is that what she told you? Lorelei's smile tightened. The same week you declined Westridge's exclusivity offer, Venture Arts withdrew from your funding round. Coincidence? Ellery knows nothing about my negotiations. She knows everything, Thad. The Westridge contract numbers, your growth projections, your vulnerabilities. Lorelei leaned forward. I had my suspicions, so I did some digging. Your perfect fiancée has quite the history of attaching herself to wealthy men before moving on. You're lying. Am I? She produced more photos. Ellery with different men over what appeared to be several years. Michael Brennan, real estate developer. Harrison Wells, hedge fund manager. Each relationship lasted until she extracted what she needed. Thad's stomach churned, but his face remained impassive. These prove nothing. Check her financials then. The gallery was underwater until you came along. Now she's flush. And pregnant? How convenient. The ultimate insurance policy. Thad stood abruptly. We're done here. There's more, Thad. Recordings of her conversations with Harwick about Pinnacle's proprietary algorithms. Emails, enough. He didn't raise his voice, but nearby patrons turned nonetheless. Stay away from me and stay away from her. Yet as he strode from the bar, doubt had taken root. The Venture Arts withdrawal had blindsided him. Ellery did have access to his home office, his laptop. The timing was suspicious. 3 days later, the Metronix deal collapsed exactly as Lorelei had predicted. Simultaneously, Pinnacle's latest security patch failed spectacularly during a client demo, sending the development team into crisis mode. Thad worked 18-hour days while Ellery planned their engagement party, seemingly oblivious to his mounting stress. Then the email arrived. From an anonymous account, audio recordings. Ellery's voice, unmistakable, discussing Pinnacle's valuation with a male voice identified as Harwick. Once the Metronix contract falls through, they'll be vulnerable, she said. That's when we move. Thad listened 3 times, forensic software confirming the audio wasn't manufactured. Something inside him hardened, the same survival instinct that had pulled him through 3 failed startups and countless setbacks. That evening, at her father's riverside home, surrounded by their families and closest friends, Thad waited until the toasts had been made, until Ellery's happiness was at its peak. "I'd like to make an announcement," he said, his voice carrying across the elegant dining room. "The engagement is off." Gasps filled the room. Ellery's smile faltered. "Thad, what are you? Did you really think I wouldn't discover what you've been doing?" His voice remained controlled, glacial. "The meetings with Harwick, the information you passed to him, the deliberate sabotage of my company?" "What?" Ellery's face drained of color. "I don't understand. Don't insult me further by lying. I have the recordings, Ellery. I know exactly what you are." He removed the emerald ring from his pocket and placed it on the table with surgical precision. "A con artist. A very good one." "Thad, please." She reached for him, tears spilling. "Whatever you think you know, it's not true. I would never use me. Never manipulate me. Never fake a pregnancy to secure your financial future." Her father stood. "Now see here, Blackwood. Ask your daughter about her meetings with James Harwick." Thad cut him off. "Ask her how my company lost $20 million in deals immediately after she gained access to my files." "The pregnancy," Ellery choked out. "A convenient fiction, I'm sure. Well executed, like everything else about your performance." With that, Thad turned and walked out, ignoring the chaos erupting behind him. In the car, he instructed his driver to take him directly to Boston, then called his assistant to change all security codes, locks, and passwords associated with both his professional and personal accounts. The next morning, his COO confirmed that their internal investigation had revealed a significant data breach originating from Thad's home network. "The leak started 6 months ago," Allen reported grimly. "Whoever did this knew exactly what they were looking for." Thad stared out his office window at the Boston skyline. "Lock everything down. No one gets access to any systems or facilities without direct authorization from me. Not even people you think you know." His phone had logged 27 missed calls from Ellery. He blocked her number without listening to a single message. That afternoon, Ellery appeared in his office lobby, eyes red, face ashen. Security stopped her before she could reach the elevators. "Please, I just need 5 minutes," she begged as they escorted her out. "Thad, listen to me. It's not what you think." The baby. The glass doors closed, cutting off her cries. Later that evening, Thad received one text from an unknown number. "I went to the doctor today. The baby is real. I never betrayed you. When you're ready to hear the truth, I'll be waiting." He deleted it without replying. 1 week later, Laura from the Newport Realtor's office called to inform him that Ellery had removed her belongings from the house and relinquished all claims to the property. 2 weeks after that, he drove past her Providence gallery on a whim and found it closed, a foreclosure notice taped to the door. By then, Pinnacle had stabilized, the crisis contained. But Thad found no satisfaction in the recovery. He worked longer hours, avoided social engagements, and told himself the hollow feeling in his chest was merely exhaustion. It would be 4 long years before he learned the devastating truth. The Seattle rain tapped against the window of Ellery's small restoration studio, a persistent rhythm that had become the soundtrack of her new life. For years had passed since she'd fled the East Coast, shattered and pregnant, with nothing but 2 suitcases and a broken heart. "Mom, look what I made." Aurora burst into the studio, her dark curls bouncing, a paint-splattered paper clutched in her tiny hand. Ellery carefully set down her tools beside the Monet landscape she was restoring and turned to her daughter. Every time she looked at Aurora, her breath caught. Those eyes, so vividly like Thad's, intelligent and penetrating even at 3 years old. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. Is that our house?" Aurora nodded emphatically. "And that's you." And that's me, and that's Aunt Meredith. Perfect. Ellery picked up her daughter, mindful of the paint on her hands. Aunt Meredith said you were an absolute artist at daycare today. The best one, Aurora confirmed without a hint of modesty. Ellery laughed, the sound still surprising her sometimes. There had been months after Aurora's birth when she wasn't sure she'd ever laugh again. After settling Aurora with a snack in the small kitchenette adjoining the studio, Ellery returned to the Monet. The Davidson collection had been her first major commission in Seattle, a turning point after 2 years of scraping by with minor restorations and part-time gallery work. Howard Davidson, a software billionaire with more money than art knowledge, had entrusted her with his newly acquired Impressionist paintings, impressed by her innovative approach to pigment preservation. "You're a miracle worker, Ms. Monroe," he declared when she salvaged a water-damaged Renoir that 3 other restorers had deemed hopeless. The referrals had snowballed from there. Now, for years after arriving in Seattle with nothing, Ellery had established herself as one of the city's premier art restorers, with a technique gaining recognition beyond the Pacific Northwest. Her phone buzzed with a text from her Aunt Meredith. Dr. Kaplan's office called. "Aurora's appointment is confirmed for Thursday." Ellery's stomach tightened. Aurora's congenital heart condition required regular monitoring. Another secret she carried alone. The pregnancy that Thad had dismissed as fiction had nearly killed them both. Preeclampsia in her 7th month, followed by an emergency C-section. Aurora, tiny and struggling, whisked immediately to NICU. Then the devastating diagnosis, a rare valve malformation that would require lifelong medical management and possibly multiple surgeries. During those dark days in the hospital, Ellery had almost contacted Thad. Her finger had hovered over his number countless times. But the memory of his cold eyes as he accused her of deception, the casual cruelty with which he'd humiliated her before their families, those wounds were still too raw. "He thinks I'm a con artist," she told Meredith through tears. "He thinks I faked the pregnancy to manipulate him. Why would I subject him to a child he doesn't want or believe is his?" So she'd made the decision. She would do this alone. Her Aunt Meredith, her father's younger sister and an art history professor at Seattle University, had been her salvation. Meredith offered her guest house, helped with Aurora while Ellery rebuilt her career, and never once questioned her decision to leave Thad in ignorance. "Cupcake or cookie?" Aurora called from the kitchenette, interrupting Ellery's memories. "Apple slices," Ellery countered with a smile. "We're having dinner with the Davidsons tonight, remember?" Aurora's face fell momentarily before brightening. "Will Mr. Davidson bring his robot dog again?" "I'm sure he will." Ellery glanced at her watch. "We need to leave in an hour. Can you pick out a dress while I finish this section?" As Aurora scampered off, Ellery's phone rang. The caller ID displayed Chicago Institute of Art. Ellery Monroe speaking. "Ms. Monroe, this is Director Helena Winters. I've been following your work, particularly your breakthrough with the Davidson Collection's water-damaged Impressionists." "Thank you. That's very kind. It's not kindness, it's recognition of exceptional talent. We're hosting an international seminar on innovative preservation techniques next month. I'd like you to present your method." Ellery nearly dropped her brush. The Chicago Institute was among the most prestigious art museums in the country. "I'm honored, but my schedule is quite full, and I have a young daughter. We'll cover all expenses for both of you, of course. This could be significant exposure for your technique. Several major museums and private collectors will be attending." The opportunity was too important to decline. After confirming details, Ellery hung up, her mind racing with preparations. This could be the breakthrough that would secure Aurora's future, a technique patented under her name, licensing potential, consulting fees that would ensure they'd never struggle again. That evening at the Davidsons' lakefront mansion, while Aurora played with the robotic dog in the next room, Howard raised his glass to Ellery. "To the woman who saved my Renoir. The Beaumont Gallery called today. They're interested in your pigment stabilization method." "Actually, I have news of my own," Ellery replied. "The Chicago Institute has invited me to present at their preservation seminar." "Phenomenal," Howard's wife Patricia exclaimed. "They're notoriously selective. She'll be famous after this," Howard declared. "Mark my words." Later, as Ellery tucked an exhausted Aurora into bed, her daughter asked drowsily, "Are we really going on an airplane?" "Yes, sweetheart. To Chicago. Will we see dinosaurs?" The Field Museum has wonderful dinosaurs, Ellery promised, smoothing Aurora's curls. Can Daddy come too? The question, innocent but devastating, hung in the air. Aurora had recently begun asking about her father, noticing other children with daddies at daycare. Daddy lives far away, remember? Ellery managed, her throat tight. But we're going far away on the airplane. Maybe we can go see him after the dinosaurs. Time for sleep, Ellery whispered, kissing her forehead. Dream about dinosaurs tonight. As Aurora drifted off, Ellery retreated to her small home office and unlocked the bottom drawer of her desk. Inside lay a single photograph, the only one she'd kept. Thad at the helm of his sailboat on Lake Champlain, laughing into the wind, unaware of the camera. She'd taken it the weekend he proposed. Across the country in Boston, Thaddeus Blackwood stared at his computer screen, the quarterly report blurring before his eyes. Pinnacle Technologies had grown exponentially, recently valued at $1.2 billion after their latest acquisition. The business press called him ruthlessly effective, a tech visionary, Boston's most eligible bachelor. They had no idea that success tasted like ashes to him. Not since the day, 2 years ago, when Lorelei Vaughn's fraud had been exposed by a junior IT specialist who discovered her elaborate digital trail. The evidence was irrefutable. She had manufactured the recordings, doctored the photographs, orchestrated the data breach from within, all while manipulating Thad into believing Ellery was the culprit. By then, Ellery had vanished. Her gallery sold, her Providence apartment emptied, her cell number disconnected. Her father refused his calls. Private investigators found nothing. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. And somewhere out there, possibly, was his child. The child he had denied, dismissed as fiction. The child he had spent 2 years searching for, without success. The grand ballroom of the Chicago Palmer House hummed with the sophisticated murmur of art world elites. Thad adjusted his tie, feeling out of place despite his custom Tom Ford suit. Tech conferences were his natural habitat, not this gathering of museum directors, art historians, and conservation specialists. Mr. Blackwood, so glad you could make it. Helena Winters, the Institute's director, approached with a champagne flute. Your foundation's support for our preservation initiatives has been transformative. Happy to help, he replied automatically. In truth, the Blackwood Foundation's arts patronage was just one of many attempts to connect with Ellery's world, to maintain some invisible thread between them while his search continued. Helena gestured toward the stage. Today's final speaker is extraordinary, a true innovator in pigment preservation. Her technique saved the Davidson Renoir that water damage had nearly destroyed. Thad nodded politely, his attention already drifting to his phone, where his investigators' weekly report awaited. Another dead end, no doubt. If you'll excuse me, Helena said. I need to introduce our closing presenter. Find a good seat, you won't want to miss this. He tucked away his phone and moved toward the back of the room, planning a quick exit once politeness allowed. The lights dimmed slightly as Helena took the podium. Our final presenter has revolutionized how we approach water-damaged canvases with her proprietary molecular stabilization technique. From Seattle's Cascade Gallery, please welcome Ellery Monroe. Thad froze, certain he'd misheard. Then she walked onto the stage, and the world tilted on its axis. Ellery. Her hair was shorter now, falling just below her shoulders, and she moved with a confident poise that was new. But her smile, the graceful way she thanked the audience, those were achingly familiar. Good afternoon, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the room. When we consider artwork damaged by environmental factors, we typically focus on restoration, returning the piece to some approximation of its original state. Today, I want to challenge that paradigm. Thad couldn't breathe. For years of searching, of private investigators and dead ends, and here she was, casually discussing molecular bonds and canvas preservation as if she hadn't vanished from the face of the earth, as if she hadn't taken his child and disappeared. His child. The thought struck like lightning. If Ellery was here, then the child, his son or daughter, might be nearby. The possibility rooted him to the spot when every instinct screamed to rush the stage, to demand answers. Throughout her 40-minute presentation, Thad remained motionless, absorbing every detail of her. The elegant gestures of her hands as she discussed pigment properties, the slight crease between her brows when she concentrated, the confidence with which she fielded technical questions. This was not the Ellery he'd known 4 years ago. This woman stood taller, spoke with authority, commanded the room with quiet assurance. When the applause finally came, it was enthusiastic and sustained. Clearly, her technique had impressed the gathering of experts. Thad watched as she was immediately surrounded by attendees, business cards being pressed into her hands from all directions. He needed to approach carefully. A scene would only drive her away again. Forcing himself to wait, he observed from a distance as the crowd around her gradually thinned. When only 2 people remained in conversation with her, he began moving toward the stage, his heart hammering against his ribs. Then he saw her glance at her watch and make her apologies to the lingering admirers. She stepped quickly off the stage and headed not toward the main exit, but a side door. Following discreetly, Thad watched her slip into the corridor and walk briskly toward the hotel's north wing. He followed, maintaining distance, as she entered the hotel's conservatory garden, a glass-enclosed space filled with tropical plants and comfortable seating areas. She appeared to be searching for someone. "Aurora?" she called softly, scanning the nearly empty garden. "Sweetie, where are you?" Aurora. A girl's name. His daughter's name. Before he could process this revelation, a child's laughter echoed from behind a large fern arrangement. "Here I am, Mommy. I was hiding." A small figure darted out, and Thad's world contracted to a pinpoint of focus. The little girl couldn't be more than 3 or 4, with a cloud of dark curls and a smile that transformed her entire face. But it was her eyes that stopped his heart, a distinctive shade of blue-gray, wide and intelligent. His eyes, unmistakably. "There you are, my little explorer." Ellery knelt to the child's level. "Did you have fun with Miss Patterson?" The elderly woman who'd apparently been watching the girl smiled. "She was perfect company. We read 3 books and practiced her letters." "Thank you for looking after her." Ellery handed the woman an envelope. "We appreciate it so much." "Anytime, dear. She's a delight." The woman patted Aurora's head and departed, leaving mother and daughter alone among the greenery. Thad stood frozen behind a tall arrangement of palms, unable to step forward, unable to retreat. His daughter, the child he'd denied existed, the child he'd spent 2 years searching for. "Did you talk about paintings, Mommy?" Aurora asked, taking Ellery's hand. "I did. And guess what? People really liked my special way of fixing them. The way you made Mr. Davidson's pond picture pretty again." "Exactly that way." Aurora beamed with pride. "I told Miss Patterson my mommy is the best painting doctor in the whole world. You're my very best cheerleader." Ellery checked her watch again. "We should head upstairs to change for dinner. The museum is having a special party, and you get to come for a little while. With fancy desserts?" "The fanciest." As they started to leave, Aurora suddenly dropped the small toy she'd been holding. When she bent to retrieve it, she looked up and directly into the fronds where Thad stood partially concealed. For one breathtaking moment, father and daughter locked eyes. Aurora tilted her head curiously but said nothing, returning her attention to her mother as they walked toward the exit. Thad remained motionless until long after they'd disappeared, his mind racing through calculations. Timing. Possibilities. Certainties. This child, Aurora, would have been born roughly 7 months after he'd ended the engagement. After he'd accused Ellery of fabricating the pregnancy. After he'd humiliated her publicly and refused to listen to her explanations. His phone buzzed insistently, breaking his paralysis. His CFO, probably, with questions about tomorrow's board meeting. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered except the little girl with his eyes and Ellery's determined stride. He moved swiftly through the hotel toward the registration desk, flashing his most charming smile at the concierge. "I believe my colleague Ellery Monroe is staying here. I've misplaced the details of our dinner arrangement tonight." The concierge typed briefly. "Ms. Monroe is attending the Institute reception at 7 in the grand ballroom. I can't disclose her room information, but I'd be happy to leave a message." "No need, thank you." Thad checked his watch. 5:30. He had 90 minutes to prepare for the most important confrontation of his life. When he entered the grand ballroom that evening, transforming from conference space to elegant reception venue, he spotted her immediately. Ellery stood near the center of the room in a simple emerald dress, champagne flute in hand, engaged in conversation with an older gentleman Thad recognized as the curator of European paintings. Beside her, Holding her free hand, stood Aurora in a navy blue dress with a ribbon in her curls. He approached from an angle where Ellery wouldn't immediately see him, his focus entirely on the child. In the ballroom's bright lights, the resemblance was even more striking. Aurora had her mother's delicate features and coloring, but the shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw, those were purely Blackwood traits. When he was 15 feet away, Ellery's conversation partner noticed him and his expression changed, causing Ellery to turn. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom. Recognition, shock, then something like terror flashed across Ellery's face. Her champagne glass tilted dangerously before she steadied it. For 3 excruciating seconds, neither moved. "Ellery," Thad said simply, closing the distance between them. The curator, sensing tension, excused himself with a murmured pleasantry. Ellery's grip on Aurora's hand tightened visibly. "Thaddeus." Her voice was controlled, betraying nothing. "What a surprise." "Is it? I'm a major donor to the Institute." He forced himself to maintain eye contact rather than stare at Aurora. "Your presentation was impressive." "Thank you." She shifted slightly, angling herself between him and the child. "If you'll excuse us, we were just leaving." "Mommy, who's that?" Aurora piped up, peering around her mother's protective stance. "A colleague, sweetheart." Ellery's smile was strained. "We need to get you to bed." Thad crouched to Aurora's level, ignoring Ellery's sharp intake of breath. "Hello, Aurora. I'm Thad. It's nice to meet you." The girl studied him with unnerving intensity, her head tilted in exactly the way his sister used to assess new situations. "How do you know my name?" "I heard your mother call you earlier, in the garden." Aurora's eyes widened. "Were you hiding too?" "Aurora, we need to go," Ellery interrupted firmly. 5 minutes, Ellery." Thad straightened, meeting her gaze. "That's all I'm asking." Her eyes flashed. "Like I asked for 5 minutes 4 years ago, when security escorted me out of your building?" The curator reappeared with a young woman. "Ms. Monroe, this is Andrea, one of our education coordinators. She's organized a special viewing of our children's collection for Aurora while the adults enjoy the reception." Ellery hesitated, clearly reluctant to let Aurora out of her sight with Thad present. "It's dinosaur paintings," Andrea enthused, extending her hand to Aurora. "And there might be ice cream." Aurora looked to her mother for permission. With obvious reluctance, Ellery nodded. 20 minutes only, then straight back here." As Andrea led Aurora away, the little girl glanced back over her shoulder, her curious gaze lingering on Thad. The moment they were out of earshot, Ellery turned on him, her composure fracturing. "How dare you approach my daughter?" "Our daughter," Thad corrected quietly. "You forfeited any claim to her the day you publicly accused me of faking my pregnancy." Her voice remained low but vibrated with fury. "The day you called me a con artist and refused to hear my explanation. I was wrong." The words felt inadequate even as he spoke them. Lorelei fabricated everything. The recordings, the photos, the evidence of data breaches. "We caught her 2 years ago." 2 years. Ellery's laugh held no humor. "So for 2 whole years, you've known the truth and made no attempt to." "I've had private investigators searching for you since the day we discovered her deception," he interrupted. "You disappeared completely, changed your professional name, left no forwarding address. Your father refused my calls. Every lead went nowhere." Some of the hardness in her expression faltered. "You've been looking for us?" "Every day." He gestured to a quieter corner of the room. "Please, can we talk somewhere less public?" After a moment's hesitation, she nodded curtly and led him to a small alcove partially screened by potted palms. "Why did you leave without a word?" he asked once they were relatively private. "Why make it impossible for me to find you?" "Are you serious?" Disbelief colored her voice. "You humiliated me in front of our families. You accused me of corporate espionage. You blocked my calls, my emails, had security remove me from your building." Her composure slipped further. "I nearly lost Aurora. Did you know that? Severe preeclampsia. Emergency C-section. She weighed 4 pounds. Each word landed like a physical blow. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I should have listened to you that day." "Yes, you should have." She folded her arms tightly across her chest. "Instead, you chose to believe the worst of me without a shred of real evidence. You decided I was guilty without a trial." Lorelei was very convincing. "Don't." Ellery cut him off. "Don't make excuses. You trusted her over me. Over us." She shook her head. I spent weeks trying to reach you, Thad. I left messages explaining exactly who Harwick was, a potential investor in my gallery's expansion, which you knew I was planning. The meetings were about saving my business, not betraying yours. The recordings were manipulated from conversations about art valuations. I was helping Harwick authenticate a collection he was considering purchasing. Her eyes bored into his. If you had given me 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, all of this could have been cleared up. Thad had no defense. She was right. When I realized you weren't going to listen, Ellery continued, I tried to move forward. Then my gallery went under. Thanks to Marcus embezzling funds, which an audit would have discovered if I hadn't been too distraught to notice the warning signs. I heard about the foreclosure. Did you? Her tone was razor sharp. Did you also hear that I was hospitalized with dangerously high blood pressure while 8 months pregnant? That Aurora was born with a congenital heart condition requiring specialized care. The ground seemed to shift beneath him. Heart condition? Tricuspid valve dysplasia. She watched his face pale. She'll need monitoring her entire life, possibly more surgeries as she grows. Surgeries? She's already had surgery. 2. One immediately after birth, another at 18 months. Ellery's voice finally broke. Do you have any idea what it's like to hand your baby to a surgical team, not knowing if she'll come back to you? Thad reached for the wall to steady himself. I should have been there. Yes, you should have. No absolution in her voice, just stark truth. Why didn't you tell me about her condition once you knew? Surely you understood I would have helped, regardless of our personal situation. Ellery's laugh was bitter. Tell you? How exactly? You blocked my number, remember? When I tried coming to your office, you had security throw me out. I sent a lawyer once. Your legal team threatened a restraining order. She shook her head. Besides, you made it abundantly clear you didn't believe the pregnancy was real. But after she was born, I was fighting for her life while rebuilding mine from scratch. Her chin lifted. Aurora and I have managed just fine without your help, and will continue to do so. Something in her phrasing caught his attention. Without my help, or without me? She looked away, the first break in her steady gaze. Both. Ellery, he said softly, I don't just want to provide financial support. I want to know my daughter. You don't know anything about her. Then tell me, please. The silent standoff lasted several seconds before Ellery exhaled shakily. Her full name is Aurora Grace Monroe. She loves dinosaurs and space. She's frighteningly intelligent, reading at a 5-year-old level, doing simple addition. She's fearless despite everything she's been through. A ghost of a smile touched her lips. She has your determination and my stubbornness, which is exhausting. Does she know about me at all? She knows her father lives far away. That's all. Ellery squared her shoulders. Listen carefully, Thad. I won't keep you from her if you're serious about being in her life. But I won't allow you to drift in and out when it's convenient. She's been through enough trauma. I want to be her father, not just in name. Ellery studied him, searching for sincerity. We'll need to move slowly. She doesn't know you. I understand. He hesitated. There's something I need to show you. Not here, in my hotel room. Her expression immediately closed. That's not happening. It's not what you think. He reached for his wallet and extracted a business card. This is my room number. When Aurora's asleep, if you're willing, come see what I've been doing these past 2 years. If not, I'll understand, and we can meet tomorrow to discuss arrangements. She took the card reluctantly. I make no promises. Fair enough. Just then, Andrea returned with Aurora, who was happily explaining something about Triceratops paintings with expansive hand gestures. Mommy, they had ice cream and dinosaurs. Aurora noticed Thad and her animation dimmed slightly, curiosity taking its place. Are you still talking to the hiding man? Ellery smoothed Aurora's curls. Yes, sweetheart. Mr. Blackwood and I were just catching up. Blackwood? Aurora tested the name. Like the trees with the black bark we saw at the park. Exactly like those, Thad confirmed, fighting to keep his voice steady. I have to go now, Ellery said pointedly, taking Aurora's hand. We'll talk tomorrow. As they walked away, Aurora turned to wave at him, a small, uncertain gesture that threatened to shatter what remained of his composure. 2 hours later, a soft knock came at Thad's hotel room door. He opened it to find Ellery, still in her emerald dress but with a cardigan now wrapped around her shoulders, tension evident in every line of her body. You have 15 minutes, she said as she entered, maintaining a careful distance. Thank you for coming. He gestured to the dining table where a large box sat. This is what I wanted to show you. Ellery approached warily. Inside the box were dozens of children's books, small wrapped packages, and a stack of envelopes, each labeled with a date spanning the past 2 years. What is this? Every month since I discovered Lorelei's deception, I've written a letter and bought a gift for the child I believed existed somewhere. Thad's voice roughened. I had no address to send them to, but I couldn't stop hoping I'd find you both someday. Ellery stared at the collection, visibly stunned. With trembling fingers, she opened the earliest dated envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter, the ink blotched in places as though the paper had been wet. To my child, she read aloud. I don't know if you're a son or daughter. I don't know your name or face. But today I learned that you exist, and that I failed you before you were even born. Her voice faltered as she continued reading his raw confession of guilt, his promise to never stop searching, his hope that someday he might earn the right to be called father. When she finally looked up, tears streaked her cheeks. You really didn't know where we were. Not until I saw you on that stage today. 2 days after the Chicago seminar, Ellery sat in a corner booth at Millie's Diner in Seattle, watching Aurora carefully color within the lines of her placemat. Across the table, Thad alternated between studying the menu and stealing glances at his daughter, still clearly overwhelmed by her presence. Does she have any allergies? He asked quietly. No, but she doesn't like eggs or anything too spicy. Ellery's voice remained neutral, their fragile truce still finding its boundaries. After their confrontation in Chicago, they had spent hours talking in his hotel suite. Ellery had read more of his letters, monthly chronicles of regret, hope, and determination. She'd explained Aurora's medical journey in excruciating detail, each surgery and complication another weight added to his burden of guilt. By dawn, they'd reached an uneasy arrangement. Thad would fly to Seattle to meet Aurora properly, with no immediate mention of his identity as her father. Aurora, sweetie, what would you like for breakfast? Ellery asked. Pancakes with blueberry smile. The little girl replied without looking up from her coloring. And what should Mr. Blackwood order? Ellery prompted gently. Aurora's crayon paused as she studied Thad critically. You look like a bacon person. I am indeed a bacon person. He smiled, something unguarded in his expression that made Ellery's chest tighten. How did you know? You have sharp teeth, Aurora explained matter-of-factly. For tearing meat. Thad glanced at Ellery, eyebrows raised in amusement. Apparently our daughter is observant. And literal, Ellery added. She gets that from you. After they ordered, Aurora pushed her placemat toward Thad. Do you know how to draw dinosaurs? I'm afraid I'm not very good at drawing, he admitted. I can teach you. She offered him a blue crayon. First, you make a big oval for the body. As Thad attempted to follow her precise instructions, Ellery observed them together, Aurora's serious coaching, Thad's concentrated efforts to meet her standards. The resemblance between them was unmistakable in these shared moments of focus. No, the neck needs to be longer, Aurora corrected. Brontosauruses have the longest necks of any dinosaur. I stand corrected. Thad carefully extended the neck. Is that better? Aurora tilted her head, considering. It's acceptable. Ellery couldn't suppress her smile. High praise from Professor Aurora. Their breakfast arrived, and the conversation shifted to safer topics. Aurora's preschool, Thad's first impressions of Seattle, the upcoming dinosaur exhibition at the Natural History Museum. Ellery noticed how carefully Thad listened to Aurora's rambling stories, how he spoke to her without condescension, treating her thoughts with genuine interest. Just as they were finishing, Ellery's phone rang. Her expression changed as she checked the caller ID. I need to take this, she said, sliding out of the booth. It's Dr. Kaplan's office. As she stepped away to answer, Thad and Aurora were left alone for the first time. Nervous energy radiated from him, but Aurora seemed unfazed, continuing to color contentedly. Are you a friend of my mommy's from before? She asked suddenly. Yes, Thad answered carefully. We knew each other in Boston, before you were born. Aurora nodded as if this confirmed a theory. That's why you look at her different than other grown-ups do. Different how? Like you're trying to remember something important. She selected a green crayon with deliberation. Mommy looks at old paintings that way. Before Thad could respond to this disarmingly astute observation, Ellery returned, her face pale. "What's wrong?" he asked immediately. "Aurora's cardiologist wants to see her today. Her latest test results showed some changes they want to monitor more closely." "Is it serious?" "They're just being cautious, which is doctor speak for don't panic yet." Ellery's attempt at lightness failed to mask her concern. "I need to reschedule our day." "Of course." Thad hesitated. "Would it help if I came with you?" The question hung between them, loaded with implications. This wasn't just about accompanying them to an appointment. It was about allowing him into the most vulnerable part of their lives. After a long moment, Ellery nodded. "Actually, yes. I could use another set of ears." Dr. Kaplan's office was located in the cardiac wing of Seattle Children's Hospital, a place Ellery clearly knew well. She navigated the corridors with the confidence of long familiarity, greeting nurses by name, while Aurora skipped ahead to a well-loved play area in the waiting room. "We spend a lot of time here," Ellery explained as they checked in. "Aurora's had monthly appointments since birth, weekly during rough patches. All this time, you've handled it alone," Thad said, the weight of his absence pressing down on him anew. "Not entirely alone. My Aunt Meredith has been amazing, and the Cardiac Parents Support Group meets twice a month." She watched Aurora sorting blocks with another child. "You adapt. You learn medical terminology you never wanted to know. You become an expert in your child's condition." "Ms. Monroe," a nurse appeared at the doorway. "Dr. Kaplan's ready for Aurora." The examination room was painted with cheerful underwater scenes, clearly designed to distract nervous children. Dr. Kaplan, a gentle-mannered woman with silver-streaked hair, greeted Ellery warmly before turning her curious gaze to Thad. "This is Thaddeus Blackwood," Ellery introduced, with only the slightest hesitation. "Aurora's father." The simple declaration sent a jolt through Thad, the first time Ellery had acknowledged his paternity to anyone else. Dr. Kaplan's professional demeanor betrayed no surprise. "Mr. Blackwood, I'm glad you could join us. While we prepare Aurora for her echocardiogram, perhaps you two could step out with me to discuss her recent results." In the doctor's office, surrounded by medical journals and children's drawings from grateful patients, Dr. Kaplan displayed Aurora's most recent tests on her computer screen. "The tricuspid valve regurgitation has increased slightly since our last assessment," she explained, pointing to colorful waveforms that meant nothing to Thad. "It's not immediately alarming, but it does suggest we may need to consider surgical intervention sooner than we anticipated." "How soon?" Ellery asked, her composed facade cracking slightly. "I'd like to monitor weekly for the next month. If the regurgitation continues to worsen, we might be looking at surgery within 6 months rather than our original 1 to 2 year timeline." Thad found his voice. "What exactly would this surgery involve?" Dr. Kaplan shifted her attention to him, explaining the procedure to repair Aurora's heart valve, its risks, success rates, and recovery process. Throughout the detailed explanation, Ellery remained silent, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles whitened. "I understand this is a lot to absorb," Dr. Kaplan concluded. "Especially for you, Mr. Blackwood, if you're just learning about Aurora's condition. But I want to emphasize that while we're moving up our timeline, Aurora is not in immediate danger. This is preventative." After the consultation, they accompanied Aurora for her echocardiogram, a procedure she endured with the resigned patience of a child accustomed to medical interventions. Thad watched in awe as his daughter chatted casually with the technician while her heart was displayed on a screen, the irregular flutter of her damaged valve visible even to his untrained eye. "You're so brave," he told her when the test was completed. Aurora shrugged. "I get a sticker every time. I have 73 in my collection." Outside the hospital, Ellery looked exhausted, the strain of maintaining composure finally showing. "I should get her home for her nap. Today has been a lot." "Let me drive you," Thad offered. "Please." Too tired to argue, Ellery agreed. As they drove through Seattle's rainy streets, Aurora quickly fell asleep in her car's seat, the morning's excitement catching up with her. "How do you do it?" Thad asked softly, glancing at Ellery. "How do you stay so strong through all of this?" "You don't have a choice when it's your child," she replied simply. "You find strength you didn't know you had." At Ellery's modest craftsman home in Fremont, they carefully transferred the sleeping Aurora to her bedroom, decorated with glow-in-the-dark stars and dinosaur decals. Thad stood in the doorway, watching his daughter sleep, overwhelmed by the fierce protectiveness that surged through him. "We need to talk about what happens now," Ellery said once they were seated in her small kitchen, mugs of tea between them. "Aurora's health has to be the priority." "I agree completely." Thad met her gaze directly. "I want to cover all her medical expenses, past, present, and future. The best specialists, whatever treatment she needs." "I've managed so far." "That's not the point," he interrupted gently. "You shouldn't have had to manage alone. This isn't about your capability, Ellery. It's about my responsibility." After a long silence, she nodded. "All right. For Aurora's sake, I accept." "There's more." Thad leaned forward. "I've been researching since you told me about her condition. The top pediatric cardiac surgeon in the country is at Boston Children's. Dr. Elaine Yee has pioneered a new valve repair technique with exceptional outcomes. We have excellent care here," Ellery protested. "I've already spoken with Dr. Yee's office. She's willing to review Aurora's case." "You did what?" Ellery's voice sharpened. "Without consulting me." "I'm not trying to overstep," he said quickly. "I just wanted to explore all options. The final decision is yours, of course." Ellery rubbed her temples. "You can't just step into our lives and start making unilateral decisions, Thad. That's not how this works." "You're right. I apologize." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "But I need you to understand something. From the moment I saw Aurora in Chicago, everything changed. Every priority, every goal. Nothing matters to me now except being part of her life and making sure she has the best care possible." "I believe you," Ellery said quietly. "But good intentions aren't enough. We need clear boundaries. Whatever you need." "I'm not moving back to Boston," she stated firmly. "My career is here. Aurora's support system is here. I understand. But," she continued, her expression softening slightly, "I'm willing to take her to Boston for a consultation with Dr. Yee. If, and only if, her approach offers significantly better outcomes, we can discuss temporary relocation for the surgery and recovery period." Relief washed over him. "Thank you. Don't thank me yet." Ellery's gaze was steady. "There's something else we need to discuss. Something I discovered in Chicago after you showed me those letters." She rose and went to her home office, returning with a tablet. "I was curious about your claim that you've been searching for us, so I did some research of my own." She opened a browser and turned the screen toward him. "The Blackwood Foundation for Pediatric Cardiac Research. Founded approximately 1 year ago." Thad nodded slowly. "After Lorelei's fraud was exposed and I couldn't find you, I felt so helpless. Reading about children with heart conditions became an obsession. If I couldn't help my own child, maybe I could help others like her. The foundation has funded 3 major research initiatives," Ellery continued, scrolling through the website, "including one focusing specifically on tricuspid valve abnormalities in infants." "I didn't know Aurora's specific condition then," he explained. "But heart research seemed, I don't know, like a connection to her, somehow." Ellery set down the tablet, her expression unreadable. "That's when I realized you were telling the truth. About searching for us, about the letters, about wanting to be in Aurora's life. Because no one creates a multi-million-dollar research foundation as a pretense." The silence between them felt different now, less defensive, more contemplative. "I can't undo the past 4 years," Thad said finally. "I can't give back the time I missed with her, or take away the struggles you faced alone. But I can be here now, completely committed to both of you." "To Aurora," Ellery corrected gently. "Your commitment needs to be to your daughter." "To Aurora," he agreed, though his eyes said more. From down the hall came the soft sounds of Aurora stirring from her nap, pulling them both from the moment. "Daddy," her sleepy voice called out. "Daddy, is that you?" They froze, exchanging startled glances. "She must be dreaming," Ellery whispered. "She sometimes asks for you when she's half asleep." The revelation that Aurora had been asking for him, even in dreams, threatened to break something essential inside Thad. He gripped the edge of the table, steadying himself. "Go to her," he said quietly. "She needs her mother now." Ellery nodded and rose, pausing briefly beside him. Her hand rested lightly on his shoulder, the first voluntary touch since their reunion. "We'll tell her soon," she promised. "When the time is right." As she disappeared down the hallway, Thad remained at the kitchen table, surrounded by evidence of the life they had built without him. Aurora's artwork magnetized to the refrigerator, a calendar packed with her appointments and activities, photographs of mother and daughter at the beach, at the zoo, celebrating birthdays. He had missed so much. But perhaps, if he moved carefully and proved worthy of their trust, he wouldn't miss anything more. The Lowell Observatory and Flagstaff gleamed against the Arizona twilight. Inside, 4-year-old Aurora Blackwood, officially using her father's surname since last month, peered through a telescope at Jupiter. "I can see the red spot," she exclaimed, bouncing despite her party dress. "Can we live here forever, Daddy?" "I don't think they rent rooms at observatories," Thad laughed, his hand on her shoulder. "But we can visit whenever you want." For months had passed since Aurora learned Thad was her father. The transition had been surprisingly smooth, their shared intellectual curiosity bridging the years of separation. After Dr. Yee's successful repair of Aurora's heart valve, Ellery had accepted a position at the Flagstaff Art Preservation Institute, giving them all a fresh start. "Aurora, it's almost time," Ellery called from across the observation deck. The party's starting. The small gathering of guests, including Ellery's Aunt Meredith and Aurora's medical team, assembled in the rotunda decorated with twinkling lights. Before cake, Thad announced, "I'd like to invite everyone outside for a special astronomical event." Outside, the protected Flagstaff sky blazed with stars as Thad lifted Aurora onto his shoulders. Tonight, the Lyrid's meteor shower reaches its peak. Right on cue, streaks of light blazed across the darkness, drawing gasps from the guests. "Make a wish, Daddy," Aurora whispered. Later, after cake and presents, Thad led Ellery and Aurora to the observatory's main telescope. "What are we looking at?" Aurora asked as Thad adjusted the coordinates. "The constellation that was overhead the night I first met your mother, almost exactly 5 years ago." He positioned Aurora at the eyepiece. "That bright star is Vega, in Lyra. The Greeks believed it was a magical lyre placed among the stars, so its music would never be forgotten." Aurora contemplated this. "That's sad but also nice." As she explored the night sky, Thad turned to Ellery. "These past months have been the most meaningful of my life." "You've committed to her remarkably," Ellery acknowledged. "Not just for Aurora," he said, meeting her gaze. "For you too." From his pocket, he withdrew a small velvet box containing a silver bangle inscribed, "Underneath the same stars." "I'm not asking for what we had before," Thad explained. "Too much has happened. We're different people now." "Yes, we are," she agreed, running her finger over the inscription. "The promise I'm making isn't about reclaiming what we lost. It's about building something we never had, a foundation of complete honesty and earned trust." "What exactly are you proposing?" Ellery asked. "Time," he said simply. "Permission to see where this path might lead. For all 3 of us." Aurora interrupted, calling them to see Mars through the telescope. Later, as they walked to the car with the sleeping Aurora, Ellery slipped the bangle onto her wrist. "Not for what was," she clarified softly, "but for what might be." "Under the same stars," he said. "Under the same stars," she echoed, rising on tiptoe to brush her lips against his. Not a passionate kiss, but something tentative and new. A beginning rather than a reclamation. Above them, a final shooting star traced its brilliant path, a silent witness to promises reborn.